Case & Son Insurance is the oldest continuous business in Marion County and may be the oldest continuous family-run business in the state. The current owner is the fifth generation of the Case family to run the business, and there's never been any ownership outside the Case family. They are an independent agent representing many companies and offer a full line of property casualty insurance, including home, auto, farm, business, and life. They also specialize in bonds. Shelter Insurance. The MFA Mutual Insurance Company began operations January 1, 1946. The company's name was changed to Shelter Insurance in 1981. Shelter has been serving Marion County and the surrounding areas with a local agent since 1979. The Shelter Insurance Group of companies is a leader in the industry, providing customers with exceptional insurance and financial products and services. Since opening the doors in 1946, they have become one of the most successful and financially sound regional insurance groups in the county.
This is what we found out about maybe your situation.
Yeah.
Mary.
It's 4:30.
Oh, excuse me. All right. Let's come to order and stand and say the flag salute, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have 4 members. You hear from the 4th member?
He is not going to be here this evening.
Okay, but we do have a quorum, so we proceed with our agenda. Do we have any additions or corrections?
Madam Mayor, need to strike agenda item number 8.
Okay. Number 8 has been stricken, perhaps?
All right, move to have it stricken.
Okay, is there a second?
You mean taken out?
Yes.
Second, Jerry?
Excuse me?
Do you second that motion?
I second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we will take out number 8 from that. Are there any others that we would like to amend or otherwise?
I move to approve the amended agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried 4-0. Consent agenda, is there any article you'd like to have taken out for further discussion? If not, I would move approval. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried 4-0. Guess we're down to number 4, Miss Sarah.
Thank you, Mayor Wilson. I'm Sarah Steele with Gilmore & Bell out of Wichita. We serve as bond counsel to the city, and we are here today for the final action necessary for the issuance of industrial revenue bonds to finance the acquisition and construction of the September 1 and September 2 projects. Just one. Thank you, Mr. Bishop. Tom Bishop with the company is here as well. You have before you ordinance number 1355, which authorizes the issuance of collectively $4,200,000 of industrial revenue bonds in 3 series of bonds. These bonds are solely repaid by Homestead Rural Rehabilitation through a lease from the City of Marion to Homestead. This is not an obligation of the city in any way. Not certainly shown as a debt of the city for purposes of your debt limits or outstanding debt of the city. The ordinance authorizes the execution of a bond agreement with Central National Bank as the purchaser of Series A and Series B of the bonds. Homestead Rural Rehabilitation will purchase Series C, which is a $5,000 bond that they will hold for the duration of the property tax abatement and possibly beyond with the options under the lease. The lease itself is the primary document for the city to pass all of the obligations on to Homestead Rural Rehabilitation for construction of the projects, insuring of the projects, all maintenance, all operations. In the event of a default under the lease agreement, there is a provision in Article, sorry, I don't have the lease right in front, 20? Article 20 of the lease deals with any sort of remedies on default. The bank, as the primary lender on the project, will direct all of the proceedings and exercising of the remedies. In the again unlikely event of a default, the city will need to cooperate. There is provision in the lease under that section that Homestead will indemnify the city for all of their fees, including attorney's fees, on exercising those remedies. So the city is made whole under this agreement, and so there really is no liability. Again, the city's doing this as an accommodation to the project to allow it to qualify for a sales tax exemption, as well as the property tax exemption for a 10-year period.
Madam Mayor, before we get into discussion on that, I'm going to recuse myself from any discussion and voting on this for our conflict of interest policy. I will be available if there are any questions contained for the banking side of this project.
Okay, so noted, we'll do that. Clerk? I have one question for you as to when the payments are being made, does that come through the city as to a report as to the payments that are being made on time, or do we ever see anything like that?
You don't. You have the payments go directly from Homestead through an assignment that will be executed in this in the documents. The assignment that will allow the payments to go directly from Homestead to Central National Bank. There is a provision that on an annual basis, they are to notify the city as to how much is outstanding on the bond issue. That then is placed on a report that goes to the Department of Commerce.
Okay, and then would also come to us too, or the city?
It's a report from the city to the state.
Okay. Oh, okay.
So
From
yes,
us to
they
them.
will, the Homestead will let you know each year how much dollar-wise is outstanding on the bonds.
Did you get that legal
I
description?
apologize, yes, I do have that. Late Friday, the title company did get the title commitment prepared just for the portion of the title policy that will ensure title in the city of Marion, and that will be duplicated, that legal description will be duplicated in the bond agreement, the lease, and any other documents where it's shown as needing a legal description.
Is there any other legal description of September 1, or is that what this is?
That is the parcel 1
One
and
is-
parcel 2
Okay,
are the
parcel 1 would
complete
be the,
descriptions.
okay, parcel 1 is September, and number 2 is the Victor Plaza, correct?
So this is
And
the
it's
one-
lots 1 through 23.
Yes.
That's the one up north.
Right.
It's Victory Plaza. Whereas up north, parcel 1 is
This is
here to the
September.
east.
Does that satisfy what you were wanting to know? Fine. Well,
I don't know. Kind of generic.
on the plaza.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay, but that would be the only two parcels that you will be thinking about doing any kind of a project on. This would be the project, correct?
These are the, Madam Mayor, members of the commission. I'm Tom Bishop, Homestead Affordable Housing. The legal descriptions there are of the two parcels, and the September one is kind of unusual because it's a developed property that was built in 91, 89, but it's a meets and bounds survey description. So it's not Block A, Eisenhower Court, whatever, it's a meets and bounds. And there's been considerable discussion. We have to perfect a ALTA survey of the property with a proper legal description, and they've decided that there isn't anything that they can do other than use this meets and bounds. And so technically what they come in is they measure and point all of the corners of that meets and bounds, and then they've got to draw lines and perfect the location of the building on that site, every sidewalk, every improvement to create the ALTA
As
survey.
you get to going through that.
Right, right.
Okay, but then these two parcels will be the ones that will be used for these bonds, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Anything else that you would like to ask?
well, what, you said, so what about this $5,000? I didn't understand that.
The,
You didn't say that was for that.
No.
All of these proceeds will be used on these two projects. So the total of $4,200,000 for each, total of the 3 series will be used on this project. We do a small $5,000 bond to ensure that we will have bonds remaining outstanding for the entire period of the property tax abatement. That $5,000 bond is actually being purchased by Homestead Rural Rehabilitation as part of their costs that are going into the project, that they're paying themselves. The other 2 series of bonds will be purchased by Central National Bank.
All right. I thought when we first discussed this, this was only supposed to be for 10 years.
It is a 10-year
But,
property tax abatement.
but you thought it could go up to 2043.
Would you like to answer that question from the Kansas Department of Housing standpoint? You're better versed on that one.
the provision of the federal housing tax credit is a 15-year credit to the companies that buy the housing tax credits. And so when we put together the investors in the credits, that is a 15-year provision rather than a 10. So for the purposes of the investors' money, the tax credits provided, it's a 15-year period rather than a 10. And as I shared earlier, the provisions of the bonds are to get us the abatement that we can apply for through the Court of Tax Appeals once we're completed. But there isn't a provision under the Court of Tax Appeals to allow those that exemption to be granted ahead of time. And so for the investors to know that the project works, we have to have bonds issued and get the abatement up front. So our intention would be that that abatement would continue past the 10 years through the balance of the period through the action of the Kansas statute that provides for that exemption.
Mr. Bishop, being the legislators are in their discussions of budgeting and so forth, if perchance those tax abatements and exemption loopholes, or whatever you might want to call them, are repealed, what would happen then? You just go ahead and start paying the taxes on it, or what? Or maybe you get a percentage of it, or you think you'd be grandfathered in, or?
Well, I spent a couple terms in the Kansas House, and it'd be the last thing I'd want to do to guess what those folks
That's for sure.
may or may not do. But my judgment would be any change in statute would be from that point on. They wouldn't go back and say everything that's been exempted at this point should go away. Richard Carlson, who chairs the House Tax Committee, is my state rep from Wamego. He chaired 2 years ago the provision to eliminate all of the exemptions. And there were hearings with packed rooms on every single exemption because they were trying to look at what they would do away with. And at the end of that process, there were hundreds of hours of testimony, and I don't think they took any action to take anything away.
Not at this point they haven't.
Right.
Okay, now we'll get back to what the original thing is here, with just an ordinance, and all of this ordinances pertaining to this, all of this good reading that you have here. Are there any further questions on what you have? If not, do I hear an action motion to approve ordinance number 1355, authorizing these various bonds to be presented or issued? And do you want this whole thing in your motion?
When I type out the minutes, I'll put that we're approving ordinance number 1355. I include the entire first paragraph, and then I can say to council member move to approve as presented.
Okay. Do we have any action to be taken? Any action to be taken? Are there further questions that we need to clear up first?
So, do we know the approximate number of how much taxes we're going to lose over the life of this project?
Yes, I do.
Well, he was asking me, it was in the cost benefit analysis report that was presented in our several hours we spent together earlier. The benefit says, the report says that in spite of taxes being abated, there's still a cost benefit to the community.
To the city in the way of tax, to utilities and that type of thing.
And
Is
an
that correct?
economic benefit, right. And I would also point out that it is the improvements aren't there being taxed now. It's not like you've got a $4 million project that is going away. And I realize there are some taxes that are going to go away. But part of what happens is that you produce a product that is worth something that you don't realize the taxes on, but you're not getting taxes on that finished product anyway.
If I may, as I look at it, if you don't approve this, we're not going to have any investment to worry about getting taxes on anyway. So when you're asking, it's truly an opportunity cost. It's not a revenue loss.
Okay. I move we approve ordinance 1355. Recorded according to the paragraphs you quoted.
Is there a second? Is there a second? I think you all know that I do have a little bit of quandaries about some of this, but then I will go ahead and second it at this time, and we hope for the best and look for the best for working with you. I know it's a long time coming, but then we hope to get this project underway pretty quickly. Okay? That being said, is there any further discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed? Motion carried 2-1 and with one recusal.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, that should go down, not as an abstention, but as a
I said
recorded
recusal.
no vote.
Yeah, as a recusal. Excuse me if I didn't make that clear. All right, then let's move on then to, Sarah, did you need anything right now?
No, ma'am. We will send you documents for execution.
Okay, so I don't have this pleasure of signing all this stuff.
Not today.
All right, thank you for
Thank you
getting
very
those
much.
descriptions for me. Moving on then to number 5 is this.
But since you mentioned it, that's what it's 2 billion.
You're stuck with me again.
There, through the bonds.
We would just like you to consider approving our recommendations for changes to our subdivision regulations. I gave you a list of 20 changes last time I was here, and there's nothing of substance in these changes. They're mainly typos.
I would agree with you. Is there any other further questions on this before we take action? And I move approval of the subdivision recommendations given us to by the Planning and Zoning Board. Is there a second?
I'd second.
Been moved and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed? Motion carried 4-0.
Okay, thank you.
Margot, did you discuss with Chad about coming up with some kind of a form that you could have somebody make out that when you have a recommendation for us here, you know, for like a conditional use or something, that we will have a paper trail that would say, here's your recommendations. You know, we asked you to have a written thing of what you brought to us last month. Remember? If not, I know what we wanted, so I'll talk to Chad about that. And I think that's what you've been working on that too, haven't you?
Well, I know, I remember that being brought up in meetings, but I apologize, I don't remember you telling me that last time, but I wasn't planning on being here, and
That's perfectly.
got about 110 things going, but we can get that
You'll
done.
probably hear it tonight again when we get into the meeting there, that might be one thing we're gonna ask you to do.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
okay, thank you.
Okay, let's go on to number 6.
Good evening. In your
Yes.
packet should be the bid tab for the Clink project, which we opened 16th, Thursday, May 16th. This, as a refresher, this is the mill and overlay project. It'll go from Locust Street to the alley past Walnut, or I'm sorry, past First, halfway to Walnut. Mill and overlay project also includes the restriping. The ad alternate was actually a portion to do some work at the post office. The reason that we listed as an alternate, it is not participating, in others, we can't use the KDOT funds for that, so we bid it as separate. And that's why you'll see the 2 different costs. So the base project, we had 3 different bidders. The first bid was from Kansas Paving, second bid was from Corneo and Sons, third bid was from APAC. And Kansas Paving was the low bidder with a bid price for the base bid of $222,709.05. The KDOT grant is for up to $200,000, and you were to put in roughly $66,000 if we maxed their side out, so it's a combined total of $266. So you can see we're underneath the 266 by we're down to 222 if we take the low bid. And therefore, what that means is you'll be able to use KDOT money for the 75%. So in other words, you still have to do 25%, but you'll get their full amount, 75%. In other words, we weren't over on the bid, so you're not gonna have to put a 100% on any of your part, other than if you decide to do ad alternates through this project. We've discussed with city staff, at this point in time, our recommendation is to actually just award the base bid. So we can always go back later and do the ad alternate either through this contractor or by other means. City can do it themselves, we can hire another contractor later. I mean, there's multiple ways to do it, but right now, our recommendation is just to award the base bid to Kansas
Okay,
Paving.
and then we could pick up that 13, is that 13,000 then it would be, or just the?
15,135.
Excuse me, 15.
That's if we paid
15.
Kansas Paving to do that work.
Okay.
Like I said, there's other means available to fulfill that
Could you
work.
work it in, would you be working the same time they would be working though, if you had two different ways of doing that?
We could either have it done ahead of time, well, the painting, you couldn't, that'd have to wait till they were done. What's not included in the base bid is the remarking of the parking lines.
Oh,
The angled parking,
yeah.
that's in the ad alternate. But the
Okay.
Main Street striping, the length lines, the yellow line, that's in the base bid.
Okay,
And the
so-
crosswalks
okay.
are in the base bid.
But that, just the entrance there, is that?
The concrete work in the entrance could be done before, could be done after, could be done during, and that part won't matter. So,
Okay, that's not 13, or 15,000.
no, the striping and
That whole thing would be that.
the concrete work are 15,000. Roughly 10,000, roughly 11,000 for the concrete work and 4,500 for the striping.
And so in this particular one, they would be doing the striping. They do the striping for us otherwise?
Who?
This particular company?
No,
So
no.
we just get it whenever we want it, we do it, if whoever we want.
Correct.
But if we went with them, we would probably want them to do that too.
Well, the recommendation at this point is to not include striping as part of the
Okay.
approval.
The parking striping.
Okay, just go with the 222.
The recommendation right now, our recommendation is to award the 222. If we decide they, meaning Kansas Paving or their sub is the best alternative, we can always award it to them later.
Okay. Everybody understand that now? There's meant to be a little bit there. Okay.
And their time frames, I was gonna forget this, I believe they said they could start as early as July 1, and they would finish prior to August 20th, I believe. Yeah, 13th, but they'd only be on site for probably 2 weeks. So
Okay.
they gave us a 6-week window and said sometime in this 6-week window, we'll take 2 weeks of that and do the work.
Okay, Darren, I'm gonna ask you about heat. Does that have anything to do with,
Heat?
how, heat, yes, about how hot it is at the time that they do it? Does that have anything to do with?
No, with asphalt.
Not with asphalt?
With asphalt, that asphalt's being laid at close to 265 degrees, so whether it's a 70-degree day or a 110-degree day, it's not gonna make a bit of difference to asphalt.
Okay. I thought it
Do we get the millings?
Yes. Yes, millings will be provided to the city, and I believe I had to double check, I believe the hall location, we had multiple locations listed, and I think it was City Shop. I don't remember where the other one was, but we told them all hauling would be within a mile.
And they would haul it?
They haul it. That's correct. That's part of their bid is to haul to whatever location we deem within 1 mile.
Good.
If for some reason we had spots to directly dump them that the city could then grade them in an alley or something that was in really bad shape, we could direct say, hey, 2 trucks over here, dump them in the city, fleet
Or
around.
down in the, where he's wanting to park roadway to.
Yeah, the park will receive a portion of them. The rest, at this point, we're anticipating taking out to the gun range.
Which the park is easy because it's like literally right there. So,
They wouldn't roll them though, would they?
no, not for this price. No.
Okay, so we have to prove your project too, with
Yeah.
these people or not.
What we're asking for is an approval to award the bid to Kansas Paving in the amount of $222,790.20, subject to KDOT's review and approval. They've already reviewed it, but they have to approve it after you guys make your motion.
Darren, would you clarify for me at the post office where these alternates are? And I know you're not or you and the staff are not recommending those. What is city-owned and what is private property?
Technically, from our research, 100% of the property that the post office currently sits on is city-owned. It is merely leased to the United States Post Office. Therefore, all pavements are yours, 100%. The driveway, the parking lot, and the outbound lanes.
And our lease doesn't cover their, them.
Not that I can tell, but that lease is kind of...
Maybe that's an issue.
There's some confusion because there was land that was granted to the city based upon drainage issues on the east side of the post office. It appears as if the city owns it, but I think if we got in a push-pull with the post office, there may be some claims also on behalf of the post office. But I do know this falls within the 33-foot of center line right-of-way. And so typically we do feel as though ingress and egress for commercial or public use access, much like our alleyways, really it still falls within that. We're not encroaching upon private ground, whether it's owned by the city of Marion or the post office.
That's correct. If you drew the right-of-way line all the way through there, all this work is technically out on the right-of-way line. But the way KDOT uses it's not in a traveled path of the highway, therefore their money won't pay for it. That's why it made it all city property, our city participant, or non-participating by KDOT, participating by city. The work out there is basically, you know, if you go take a look at that, there's not a good flow line gutter through across that entrance. So right now the water kind of meanders wherever it wants to, and it's just eating up the edge of the asphalt. So what this work does is it cuts a new curb and gutter entrance concrete pavement in there so that the water will flow on that, not chew up the asphalt, and slightly there's a hump back in the asphalt on the post office side is to correct that hump a little bit too, so cars pulling in and out of there don't have quite the rideability factor. Plus fixing the sidewalks on each side, which need to be remarked as ADA anyway. So it's that whole sidewalk entrance slope is what's on the end all.
So right now, you just want one motion.
Just a motion to approve the
Madam
Kansas
Mayor, I'll
paving.
make a motion that we accept Kansas paving bid of $222,709.20.
For the Clean project that will extend from so-and-so to such and such.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, and subject to KDOT final rule.
Subject to KDOT final approval,
yeah,
yes.
they may not have the money.
Oh, they've got it. It's actually already, it's kind of like Tom was saying earlier, this is stuff that's already been set aside.
Okay,
I'll second the motion, and then
been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion?
I would have another question. On the items that you asked as alternate one, there, is the staff going to propose something else?
The intent right now is, I think, that we can make it more cost effective. If we could find somebody that would participate, we could help maybe with some of the breakout, some of the hauling. The price for the option was not as cost effective as the total mill and overlay because that's not their area of expertise. Let's find somebody local that's their area, and we've had good luck with Stripes and More that does our striping, and I think they would easily fall well under that quote. So because it's outside their scope, it's part of a subcontractor, why not contract it direct?
If they're doing all concrete, it would make...
Right, exactly. If you take a look at two things, number one, when we talked to each one of these three contractors that day of the bid opening, the concrete work was all being subbed out. You know, none of the prime contractors were doing it. So why would we want to pay the extra 10 or 15% that they're going to tack on if we can go out and hire a similar type sub to do the work ourselves, even if they're charging the same base price? Number two, when you take a look at the actual bid tabs, you look down through the striping costs, down there on the striping for item 17 versus the cost for backup in 4 and 5, you'll see a huge difference. And that's because they all basically, on these mill and overlay type jobs, they hire a crew to come in with a big paint tank truck, and they'll have that striped in 20 minutes. But doing all those parking lot lines is one guy with a hand cart, or even, worst case, a guy out there with a roller. I mean, you know, so the level of labor intensity completely changes. Once again, it's not gonna be the same guy that marks the stripes, the big stripes going down the center line. So that's why, cost-effective wise, when we took a review with city staff, we felt like you could probably get, just, you're gonna pay for 100% of it yourself anyway, as a city. Let's get you the best bang for the buck. Maybe that's not inside this contract, but we're gonna review that and get some prices, and then be able to give you that answer.
Very good. Thank you for that.
Any further questions? We have a motion. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed? Motion carried 4-0. Thank you, Jerry.
And Doug and Angela, I will get with you tomorrow then on what I need copies of and copies of the minutes to be able to send into the state tomorrow. All right?
You have something that I'm not,
I don't think you have to sign anything right now. Not till we produce the contract
so I'm not
documents.
gonna be here part of the day, so.
No, it'll be later this week, the first part of next week before we produce the contract documents.
Okay. Number 7. I guess that's Mr. McClellan. Would you feel more comfortable with just sitting there at the
I
end of
can
the
lean
table?
against the wall.
Okay, you just lean against the
Thank you
wall.
very much for your time. Just wanted to bring up about 4 or 5 little quick things. First of all, a huge thanks from Ag Service Co-op for allowing them to use the airport for the ag spraying again this year. We had 2 companies instead of 1. They worked quite well together. It was a tight fit, but we got them in and out. I don't know if you have heard from either of them, but there will be a pretty full receipt from their work out there.
The work and what, Dick?
Sorry.
What did you just say?
There will be a fair receipt to the city
Oh,
for the work.
that'd be good.
You know, they paid that for last year. Ag Service was the only spraying operation we had out there. When they finished, they calculated a dime an acre. And that's what I told Co-op, if they wanted to use the airport, the Ag Service had done that. My understanding of the preliminary figures on the spraying this year was a little over 35,000 acres. So the city will be getting some money from Co-op and Ag Services, something in the neighborhood of $3,500. And that brings the main point of my conversation. A couple of thanks go out to Tyler for turning the hangar, the empty hangar, over to the city. Is there anything left in it you need?
There's nothing.
You claim nothing.
There's nothing in there. Shouldn't be anything in there.
There's pickup of trash, but.
Is there?
No. You can't tell whether it's trash or stuff that you really didn't recover.
We got all the stuff out there that we needed, so.
Okay, you don't have any more claims to it. Okay, now that puts in the request for fixing it. It was rented, and bless Becky's heart, she rented it to a guy, and he looked at it and says you can't put an airplane in there. So we need to talk about using a little bit of this money that we've got to fix it. Approximately, and thanks to, I don't see him here tonight, but the city boys came out and helped me measure it. Just a ballpark guesstimate on the size of the hangar. It'll take approximately 10 yards of concrete to put a wood floor in that hangar. And a little repair work on the doors.
To make it usable for us?
To make it usable and egret access for an airplane. Right now, there's a slider that collects the 2 doors that come together. It sticks up about that high above everything else, and you cannot, average person cannot lift the front end of an airplane over that to get it in and out. In addition to that, water sets in the hangar. It's muddy bottom. It's just about fit to use. So, that being said, it will take about 10 yards of concrete and a little bit of labor to put a good floor in it. Little repair on the doors, and the guys have been wonderful about coming out and fixing doors. They've done a good job responding quickly and efficiently fixing the doors on some of the old hangars. That is one of the older hangars, so it's going to be a little tougher to fix the doors on. But it's going to be a source of income. And now that we've got a little bit of money to play with, I think it should be put to work. That's number one. Number two, Doug and I talked about putting a sidewalk from the walk-in gate up to the sidewalk or another walkway going into the building. And he said the city boys could do that. Because I asked him, my first question was if I needed to get bids for somebody to do that. He said, no, why don't we just do it ourselves? We got the money. And I know you guys schedule stuff like that, so whenever you can schedule it, wonderful.
How long of a piece would that be?
What we measure that, 25 feet?
Yeah, it's real
Give or
short
take.
time.
Sidewalk.
Less than 30.
25, 30 feet, yeah. It's not a biggie. Now, the third thing, this money has been placed in an account that, in my understanding, that doesn't require budgeting in the normal city budget procedure. So I would like to ask that the city come up with something that would make the general public keep from making a liar out of me. One of the spray guys had breakfast downtown one morning and he had more than he could eat. And I said, well, have him box it up and take it out there with you and heat it up in the microwave. Well, we don't have a microwave. And it would take somewhere between $50 and $100 to put a real nice little microwave out there that could be used on occasions like that. Pilots come in, they want to warm up a sandwich or something like that, it'd be wonderful to have one. I'm just putting in a request that we add a microwave to the purchase. It'll have to be done by the city. But this is money that could be assigned by the city for those kind of purposes, is my understanding.
Well, if we'd happen to find another one that's not being used now, we could put that out there too.
Any kind of work, yeah.
Okay.
Now, I'd like to guarantee it wouldn't be theft proof, or would be theft proof. We'll work on something like this.
How do you do that?
We'll work on it. I don't know. The lock.
When do you want me to bring the microwave out there?
Oh, boy. Have you got a combination of the door?
No, I don't. We'll talk about it later.
We'll talk about it later.
Yeah.
Have you got one?
Yeah.
That's what
That's
I said.
taken care of. Okay.
He needs to know that combination is really doing.
Well, they're supposed to. The guys, some of your guys do.
Oh, do they?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, they never told
So,
me.
you know, you guys patrol them, so they knew how to get in and lock it and all that stuff, so. Yeah, one night the spray guys left it unlocked and the lights on, and I called and instantly, before she called me back and said it's taken care of. So, an attaboy for whoever did it. If I don't ask, they can't tell, so. But one of your guys went out, shut the lights off, locked the door, checked everything over, and it was fine. Do you have any questions of me?
I do.
A few.
Yep.
Is the runway not damaged anywhere from all of this?
Absolutely not. They've got a little extra rubber on them. Yeah, some of them
Sure
just a
that
little bit heavy on the brakes before they were setting down solid. Now this brings up with the damage estimate. It appears that this could be a very stable annual thing with the co-op and Ag Service. They have offered, and Doug has delved into this a little bit with Darren, to put another pad like the one west of the big hangars, north of the taxiway, approximately 150 feet square. He's come up with a price on it, and the Ag Service, Co-op, and the gentleman from Kinsey that provides this aerial service have all offered to chip in and help pay for the 10% to 10 or 20%, what was it? If we go KDOT.
Oh, if we do the grant, it's a 10% match from the city.
Yeah, they would help pay for the 10%. So I'd like to see some movement, a positive movement towards that, and have it, hopefully if the grant was granted, Darren come up with a figure of about $135,000. 10% of that would divide in 4 ways would be pretty darn nice. Now, it's gonna cost a little more than that, because I'd like to see another taxiway entrance, exit to the runway from that pad. Sharing one exit entrance off of the runway could still get into the possibility of a danger zone. But we had the extra taxiway connecting the runway, and what would that cost, Darren?
Depends on how long it is, but
50 feet wide?
it's 35, we go 35 feet wide, and I think it's probably about 200 feet long out
Oh,
there.
no, it wouldn't be near 200. From the west edge of the new square out to the runway.
Yeah, but we need to set that new pad back about 200 to meet all the new safety requirements. So it'll be about 200 feet long. Yeah, I think,
You haven't got 200 feet.
that's close. We have to set it back a little ways.
Set it across the road.
Off the
Not
lawn.
quite across the road. But it'd be setting back. It still probably wouldn't, that narrow of a strip, probably only looking about another $15,000, $20,000 probably.
Okay, yeah, it'd be minimal.
Just popping change.
Well, minor compared to the overall cost of 150 by 150.
And we could put that in, include that
Yes.
in the bid.
I'll include that in the
So-
grant
And
request.
the grant request, I mean, yeah. So that'd be something I'd like to see done. For the benefit of, and here we are, sitting here looking at an addition of roughly $3,500 that didn't cost us a penny. They paid for the extra water they used. They brought a little bit of income into the city with motels. The guys flew in, stayed here. They ate here. You know, it was.
That's true.
We need to know who to bill for the water.
We do have an outstanding bill, about $300.
Ag service.
Ag service?
Ag service. And that's, city did that. See, I don't know who they made arrangements with last year.
Yeah, what we're gonna have to do is do a lot better job of getting an agreement, because that is Marion Improvement District number 2 water.
Right.
So we don't have control over that. So when they use water out the airport, that actually is through the county Marion Improvement District.
Last year, my memory, and I don't hold this to any credibility, but I thought they made the deal with the water supervisor out there.
To the best of my knowledge, last year they used the fire hydrant, and Water Improvement District number 2 provided the meter.
They used the,
We didn't get any bill last year, don't think, because I just noticed it this year.
they used the hydrant
Right.
by the building.
Yeah, they
Not
used
the
the,
water, not the water, not the.
and it must have been metered somehow.
There, it was metered. That hydrant is metered. All the water going into the city building is metered.
Yeah, and we can work that, but
But
that's one of the difficulties with that, is that last year, for some reason, they had worked out an arrangement with an auxiliary meter for only their usage, and they paid Marion Improvement District number 2 directly. This year, the city received the bill, so we just need to know who to turn around and bill for that water.
okay, yeah, I understand that, and I should probably apologize for that, but I wasn't in on the beginning of that, so.
Yeah, and we'll just have, since this is an ongoing thing, I will make sure that
It
we have.
appears that it's gonna be a continuance year after year.
And regarding some of the other issues, unfortunately, we were unable to have our regular meeting because of the conflict with the school schedule. But the intent was to actually have as much of the stuff discussed by the board, and then have the board make a recommendation to the council as to what's necessary. And for clarification purposes, for 2013, we specifically set up an account for airport maintenance, and there's a line item for repair and maintenance. For 2012, it was for $1,500. There's approximately $530 left. Over almost $1,000 went into repairing the lights on the runway that were damaged by lightning or some power surge that we had out there. And between the utilities and the mowing expense, my concern is that we will be basically busting the airport budget for this year. And so it's not necessarily a matter of, do we want to try to get these things done? It's just, was the budget too small? Or do we need to make some inputs as to, from the board, what that amount should be? But it was specifically a budgeted line item. We did that specifically based upon the revenue that was received in 2012 for the 2013 usage.
This was used for purposes that was ongoing expense anyway.
That's correct. What we try to do is we try to put in any normal expense like mowing expense, insurance, utilities, property taxes. Those were all figured in on a separate line item as a general line. So we shoved it into an airport and then added the 1,500 specifically for repair and maintenance above and beyond the maintenance of the facility, having the facility there. So we need to probably talk.
I have a clue what you're telling me.
Yeah.
We do.
Do you understand that? In other
Yep.
words, you didn't use the money, you used the money for stuff that was already budgeted.
We have never really had a airport repair and maintenance line item in the budget, but because of the funds that came in from
The budget, mowing budget.
that is, but the additional
Okay, you just
1,500.
mentioned that.
Yeah, because you're mowing, all your insurance, mowing, supplies, utilities, and property taxes had already been part of a general funding. We put it in as a special line item for the airport. And so when we talk about doing, 10 yards of concrete with some labor, we're talking probably close to $1,000 in materials. And the question just becomes, do we have budget authority for 2013 to accomplish the work? So just as administrator.
That's what confuses me, Doug, is because this money was supposed to be available to do projects like this without screwing out the budget.
That's impossible for your municipality. We have to have budget authority to spend.
What do you mean that,
The money
3,500?
received from these spray operations,
I didn't think that's not in your bylaws, Dick.
it's not.
It's not that I know of. I was gonna get those bylaws out and look at them for sure, and I
I
will.
would like for you to check that over.
Okay, I'll be
That
looking.
was my impression that we
We
did.
said that you would go come up with a budget, which is what you need to be doing right now, as to what you think you're gonna be wanting and giving it to our budget people.
Well, if the money's already spent for something else.
Well, it's not spent as such, because all of my mowing has not been done for this year. And all of the, what else,
That money wasn't to be
water.
promised for the mowing. My understanding.
No, the additional 1,500 was added to what the expenses were necessary for the airport.
I'm talking about the 2013 income. You mentioned the lightning strike, that was in 2013.
Right.
Because the airport department is within the general fund, we have to budget it. We can't bring revenue,
Right.
extra revenue in and then spend it in the same year. We have to take the money this year and then budget to spend it out next year. So we'll look at the revenue you bring in this year and budget it out as repair and maintenance
Okay,
for
that was
next year.
not my,
In other words, that-
Unfortunately, we don't have the ability to just in one hand and out the other. What we'll probably do at this point is we will determine how much money was received for 2013, and we should have that because I just found out we got $1,700 from co-op already. And so if it is approximately $3,500, then 2014 budget line item for repair and maintenance will be the $3,500.
co-op's already paid you.
Co-op's already paid $1,700 at least.
The ag service will be similar to what they did last year.
And then those funds then get folded into the 2014 budget authority. Then you have that to be able to spend in the 2014 calendar year. Because the council's the one that approves the budget authority for expenditures per line item.
In other words, it probably won't be this year that we're gonna do some of those things, but we will be taking them up for our budget for next year. And that's particularly, that guy gets onto a grant. Is that what you're gonna be helping with that?
Yeah, I mean, it'll be the same thing with grant, and actually, the way KDOT's grant cycle works on aviation, it's actually gonna be, it'll be your next budget cycle before we'd even know about getting a grant. So we'd actually be looking at 2015 as far as any type of construction or your expenditures, just because it's gonna be, even if they award the grant, the earliest they're gonna award the grants is fall. And so you're already past your budget cycle, so before you can even put it in your budget cycle is a year from now.
Our budget is from year to year.
Right.
Year in.
Right.
It's not like the schools, it's July the 1st. And that's what the state is too, isn't it?
State's July to July.
Right. So,
But we could potentially put.
The sidewalk portion and the repairs to the hangar could be done.
This year, out of.
I would like to be able to get a little further down the road to see what our mowing's gonna be, because based upon where we're at right now, we've already expended 11%, we've had one bill for mowing. So if you wanna keep grass under control and trimming under control, I just know we can break any individual line item, but I strongly try to keep a specific department or account number from breaking the total budget, if possible.
But Darren, from your point, if we start the 2014 budget discussions almost now.
We're on top of it, we're getting there.
That we could budget
Yeah,
the 10%.
we could. You could go ahead and, I could put the grant application together so you knew what your 10% number was gonna be, so that you could actually put it now in your budget for next year, and then if you don't expend it, you don't expend it because we don't get the grant. And that'd be fine. That'd also give Dick a chance to go back and discuss with these entities, hey, maybe they're gonna chip in. They can chip in next year after this time next year when they use it again, and we're still gonna be ahead of any type of construction, so, before we even
Yeah,
get
we
construction.
would actually have to budget the full 13.5, but if there was a way of splitting it 4 ways, our actual cash expenditure would be $3,375. We would have budget authority to spend the whole amount if we didn't get the donations, but we still can't count those donations in that budget year because it's 2 totally separate sides.
But we'd be a year ahead, we'd be a year ahead, so whether those expenditures came in or not.
Yeah, that's why we would do the full budget authority, so regardless.
You could pay yourself back in essence a year later.
Right, that's fine.
If you could get that hangar into use for renting it out though, that would be a good idea, wouldn't it?
It would, that hangar is actually one of the older ones, I think it rents for $75 a month.
But, you know,
Because the most expensive ones are 90,
I can't.
so, it's
So
just,
that maybe could be looked into whether it would or not be a.
right, like I said, if we got out,
Arrows and,
if we got out hot and dry this year and the mowing budget wasn't as bad, we could slip it in
whatever
without
build arrows,
breaking that
that's
whole
what I
budget.
should bring.
Okay.
Tells you.
Anything else, sir?
Do you have any more questions of me?
Not at this time. I think maybe we could discuss with you coming in for a budget after you have
That'd be
met
fine.
with your.
Yeah. But I'd like to see the hangar project get something done because we've got the money to do it.
Well, you don't have the money to do it. That's just what we've just decided. The only way we'll have budget money to do it is if we get a dry year and we don't have to maybe mow as much. That money, $3,500, is for next year for you, perhaps. Is that correct?
Yeah, what we
More or
try to
less.
do is tie in the additional repair and maintenance, other than just having the facility and what it takes to maintain it. But improvements, maybe is a better word for it. That was the $1,500 for 2013, but now if we're saying $3,500 comes in, then $3,500 or whatever that amount would be, would go in. It's kind of like your someday fund, your slush fund, which cities rarely have the luxury of doing. So, yeah, that would be something. Then we would take the funds that we receive in 2013 and dedicate those for budget authority in 2014.
The only question I have in mind right now, and I haven't got this through my head, what happened to the money we took in 2012?
It was approximately $1,500. That's why we budgeted $1,500 for that line item.
Why don't we have money to do the hangar for,
Because that went to repair lights that were damaged by a storm.
don't we have insurance for that?
No. Well, we don't have.
And you did some
It was
work on
$1,000 and our deductible is $1,000, so there's no use hitting our,
Did
and
you
lighting,
buy
I don't think we
some
do.
equipment there, lights or something?
That's what we're talking about, yeah. Approximately, well, it's $920.
And that was in that rainy day it came.
Yeah, what's the deal there?
Say aviation and raise it 100%.
Anyway, being he's not here to hear, personally, I sure want you to pass on something to Christian that I felt very good about his prompt response to everything that's going on there.
Good, thanks.
He's done well.
I think I've seen something in his report. He's been out there as well.
And, police department too.
Yeah.
Good deal. But,
We'll try to take care of some of these. I know that you guys are getting some responses out there, and I think that it's better because we're going to get some better use out of there now, sounds like.
well,
Get
it
the good one.
brings it back to life for at least 2 or 3 weeks.
Exactly.
If nothing else. I'll get out of here, thank you.
Ah, you bet.
There's some weekend to work.
Yeah. In the late evening. Okay. We have got away with number 8, so we'll go on with number 9. He's been sitting in a good meeting today, hasn't he?
It's my extreme pleasure that Roger Holter will be taking over the Economic Development and Tourism position. And he's been kind enough to come down and just be available to give some thoughts and maybe answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Madam Mayor, City Councilman, it's my privilege to be joining the city in this position. Part of that, I wanted, with your permission, would like to give you a little booklet. It's basically my plan to initially approach. I officially will not start until next week. Apologize, I'll grab one more.
Here, let me get that. I'll
Yes.
get one tomorrow. Yeah, I know. I'll try again. Oh, you've got some extras?
Oh,
You got it.
sorry.
The mayor passed it.
There you go. Okay. Well, and really what I would like, with your permission, just to share sort of the vision, what I plan, and then this way you have some accountability with me as we move forward.
I think she's one that picked your photo, so here you
Okay.
I'll just go ahead and shake
Okay.
hands with you, let her have.
Yeah, thank you.
We're glad to have you aboard. I would be talking with you about some of the other things, but this looks like it's going to be a good start.
Well, very good. My approach to economic development and tourism really comes down to, in today's economy, we have to think globally, interact regionally, and then act locally. So that's really the premise that I'll be using as we approach this. Now, getting started with it, my plan of action is to solicit and gather information from the community, build a consensus on what the vision is for the future. We do have resources available to us through our state universities, and I've already made contact with Kansas State University. They will help us through their programs of sending students in to help us with what's referred to as a visioning survey to decide how do we want to grow our community over the course of the upcoming years. Along with that, I feel part of my job initially will be to prepare a complete detailed list of the community resources, which ultimately will allow us to market our community, the great things that exist in this community on a regional basis, and then eventually step beyond that. And then I want to prepare a list of all the sources of personal as well as business and public income to the community. Along with that, I've already started the initial steps. We currently have under the federal government the Federal Resources for Sustainable Rural Communities. We do have the designation from the state of Kansas in our county as a rural opportunity zone, which opens up additional fundings and grants for us to pursue those. And then I've reached out and made contact with the business and community development assistants with our state. Currently I reside in Topeka, so it's very handy to slide across the street. Just to share with you the comprehensive plan's issues to action, I think my first focus has to be on retention of current businesses in our community, supporting them with the knowledge, any resources that I can develop to assist, I'll be working on that. My next role, I believe, will be marketing the social and educational climate of this community, which are the greatest strengths of this particular community. Developing relationships and recruitment with the regional and national businesses. I'll be reaching out to as many as I can, seeing if there's franchise opportunities, how we can develop and work through there. Defining and marketing our recreational assets, as well as the tourism that's going on. Then the attraction of outside income. Part of the project that the council approved this evening ties very well into retirement incomes coming into our community. And then we have what's referred to as the Lone Eagles. A lot of folks my age, unfortunately, have disposable income now and are looking for communities to invest. So I should be your liaison as we move forward with that. And then the last thing that I'll focus the attention, and I notice our Chamber of Commerce has done a great job in the holiday season of shop locally. Okay? We'd like to expand that and control the leakage that occurs as we move forward. Just so everybody knows what core values I bring and where it comes, in all my actions and agendas, and I count on you to hold me to these values. Everything that I do is going to honor God. If it doesn't, call me out on it, okay? All relations, I believe, have to be built on trust and mutual respect, and I'll work individually as well as with the group to achieve that. I strive for and I'm committed to excellence in all processes. I apologize, this should have been a PowerPoint presentation, but I'll get that
I think
resolved
that's
as we
what
move
you and I
forward.
were talking about, maybe we could do a little bit more later on with you too. I thought maybe invite some more of the public in there. How would that be?
That'd be wonderful,
Okay?
because I serve the public.
Yeah.
And then the last thing, all of my life, you've got to be a wise steward of what we're entrusted with. So those are my commitments as I move forward. And again, I wanted to thank the city council for the opportunity to join this community on a full-time basis. Any questions?
Well, I just read something the other day about integrity. That's working without having to be watched. And this looks to me like the values you would carry on if you were working without having to be watched. And you'd be doing these things right here.
Absolutely. God's given me a very distinguished career in the private sector that spanned 40 years. And I just will build on that to help support this community as we move forward.
Well,
Thank you. Nice to meet
for
you.
coming in. And I was talking with Doug the other day when I shared with you a little bit about the agreement with the MEDI, that maybe the whole council could come in and do a little work session with that if we wanted to later on. Okay, I guess we can go on down to number 10.
I will be covering from this meeting.
Do you have anything further from Arnie?
I have nothing to add, except for the fact that I think I kind of gave a shot across the bow, and it's probably going to become something I will bring to council sooner than later. Our E3, the 2004, not the most recently purchased one, but the one we've had on the electric department, it's probably about time to look to do something with that. So, not bringing anything yet, but don't be surprised when I do. E3 is the 2004 electrical bucket truck.
The old one, the older one.
Not the big one. It's the same size as what we got the 2007. This is the 04.
Just a question, the water meters, is that project finished now?
Water meters are finished.
And is it any problems with reading, or is it working like a miracle?
No miracles involved. There were a couple meters out of the box that did not behave correctly, and we have had to replace those. There's been one time in which the software interface between our data receiving and accumulation, which is called the MVRS system, which goes through our truck, to go into our billing cycle. There was a small glitch in October of last year, but it was just a one-time issue. Other than that, I have been very satisfied. We've actually had the opportunity of presenting at 2 state conferences, and I've got a PowerPoint to go through if you want to at some point, but the short take of it is we've taken meter reading down from about 7 to 10 days to about an hour and a half. So we feel as though we've really got some energy built up there. We use that extra time then to help improve on, right now we're mowing a lot, but it cuts down on the need for part-time because we can then utilize that person for ball field maintenance or additional mowing.
Now, tell me this, if we have some vacant houses around here, have they been installed as well? Or do you
Yes.
just, you have, okay. And the ones that had water in them, that didn't bother and affect anything there? They put those underneath the lid, and so the water in your meter doesn't have to, or in your hole anymore doesn't?
Yeah, you're talking about the meter pits?
Right.
The meter pits, there are a couple, and for some reason there's one out in the industrial park that is constantly underwater. And as long as the ERT, which is the encoder, receiver, transmitter that actually sends a signal out, if it's not fully submerged, we can still read it. We have had to, now with the spring rains, thankfully, we've had the wonderful need to pump out a few meter cans for them to be read. But
Okay, so like mine is one of those that just fills up, so will they have to come out and see whether that's done or not, or what?
every time we read, there will be an unread meter list, and we'll be able to identify by address where that meter is, so we can locate the meter pit and find out what the problem is with that reading.
That bothered me when I first moved to town, because it had water, and I thought things were free.
Put frogs in.
Huh?
Put your fishing frogs in.
That's what I tried, but they told me I couldn't keep it in there, so I had to do otherwise.
If you have any
Okay.
other questions, I can answer.
I see that they have started the inventory that was required more of us at the audit, is that correct?
Yeah, as of the request of the city council and because of the recommendations of the audit, we are stepping up our efforts to get a more detailed list of all inventory items that the city owns. And we have been able to place an individual pretty much dedicated on that for the last few weeks.
Any other questions? If not, how about Mrs., well, let's go with Chief, please.
I have nothing further, unless you all have any questions.
Who are you gonna sell these t-shirts to?
Anybody?
Are they going to be available at your police department, or how are
They
you
are.
gonna sell?
$15 for
For me,
adults,
but no.
$10 for children. So yeah, they're available at the police department. We got them all, so it's on quite a bit. Oh, and Chingawassa Days as well. We're gonna have a little booth set up.
You're gonna have a little booth set up?
Mhm.
Okay. Tyler, did you take the rest of our council through your demolition project yet?
No, I haven't. I was kind of hoping like a few. Well, I think Gary's been down there. No, you haven't been down there since. Guess I'll stop by and show you what I got going on so far. We just need to move some walls so we can put the ballistic walls up and remove a wall. It's going to make some added room for us. We actually moved some Clinton's office into another part of into the police department, and then moved some other things to a different place. So we're making good use with what we got. So I mean, don't need to build a new police department. We just need to deal with what we got, and we just, for some reason I was sitting around. I was like, there's a lot of unused space in here. If we got rid of some walls, and as soon as we get these other ones up, and the new door, and there'll be plenty of room for everybody.
Thank you. I forgot to mention, to ask you, did you check on that alley where the trash truck had gone out?
I know that I alerted Marty to it, and they said they were going to be working on it. I have not gone back to double check what the solution was.
Okay, thank you. Okay, let's see about Angela.
Last Thursday, I attended a training that was put on by Swindle, Jansen, Hawk, and Lloyd that addressed one of the audit points, the additional training regarding our financial statements. So we spent the entire day talking about understanding the audit and some of the new rules that have gone into place. After that, I came back, kind of part of the discussion was talking about cash reserves, so that kind of spurred me to look over our cash reserves, and that'll be probably an issue that we'll discuss during budget time. If you would like, I've kind of talked to Scott Lloyd with our auditors about possibly having him maybe attend a budget workshop. Of course, there would be a fee that goes with it, but I think it's been several years since we've had anybody come in and kind of explain the budget process. He would talk more about our cash reserve balances, things like that. If the council is agreeable to that, I can schedule something like that when we get one.
What kind of fee would you be talking?
Today we kind of just roughly talked about just a 2-hour session. He said probably $500. Typically he gives $250 an hour, but he said he would throw in the travel time on this situation. Another option we talked about is when he's here doing the county's budget, he could schedule to come over here and split the travel between the two. The only thing I wasn't too happy about that was that he doesn't go to the county until the end of July. Typically, we like to have our budget done by that point, so it's just something, if you guys want to talk to him a little bit more about it.
In my case, I think it would be, if you think we're going to profit by then it would be a good use of money. If not, why, maybe you could do that for us and save us $500. But then you guys can go ahead and discuss that too, as to how profitable you think.
If you want to have just the first budget workshop, and we can talk about some of the things that Scott and I have talked about, and then maybe go from there, see if you feel like you still want to have him come in or not.
How's that sound? Okay, so we'll schedule some of those then pretty soon, huh? And June?
I would say at the beginning of June, start talking about budget.
This is next.
Yeah.
Okay, how about Susan? Does Susan have anything?
I don't have anything other than as a parent, I really appreciated all the support that the businesses and the members showed to the baseball team when they were leaving last week. It's a good place to raise kids.
It is. About you, Mr. Sling, do you have anything else you?
Yes, I attended along with the mayor a meeting with the city and the county, well, the county's official meeting, and we talked about recycling, and I think I got put on the task force, but we will try to be coming up with some countywide with a combination of city solution on a potential for a recycling program in the city of Marion for our refuse. And I think at this point, it should be fairly seamless for us to be able to incorporate recommendations that the county may have. And also Midland GIS, it's the group that we contracted for back in February to provide the GIS services for our electrical system. They will be in town this week. So if you see gentlemen wearing bright orange vests saying Midland GIS and driving a small utility vehicle, they have been allowed to transverse our streets to get our mapping done on our electrical system.
Any questions for Dave or Doug? If not, thank you, sir. Okay, then I guess we're down here to public forum. Is there anyone in the public forum that would like to speak at this time? If not,
Move we adjourn.
I can.
Second it.
I would love to see you. Wake up. Been moved or seconded? All of, well, the next one, our next meeting will be right on the right date this time.
Well, I'm gonna try to
I gotta send you an email. All those in favor say aye.
Sure.
Right there.
Taking a photo. Goodbye.